Okay, so you want to learn English fast.
Fast, yeah.
Not just like textbook stuff,
Right.
but like really get a grip on it.
Mm.
We're diving into this Udemy article, The Best Way to Learn English Fast. 20 tips to see what we can learn.
Okay.
You know, sometimes those standard tips are popular for a reason, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But we're on the hunt for those extra nuggets of wisdom to accelerate your journey from hesitant beginner to confident communicator.
And they really hit on that motivation.
Yeah.
Why are you learning English?
Right.
What's the goal?
Exactly.
Are you picturing yourself confidently navigating a foreign city,
Oh, I love that.
acing that international exam, or even landing your dream job overseas?
Yes.
That vision, that why, becomes the fuel that keeps you going,
Horror.
even when the grammar rules feel never-ending.
So true.
Right.
It's like having that mental image of yourself flawlessly ordering a croissant in a Parisian cafe.
Ooh la la.
That's powerful motivation right there.
It is.
And speaking of motivation, this article had a cool point about finding English content that aligns with your existing interests.
Okay.
So let's say you're a huge soccer fan.
Instead of forcing yourself to memorize generic vocabulary lists,
Right.
you'd immerse yourself in the world of English language, soccer commentary, articles, podcasts, even those colorful fan forums.
I like it.
Suddenly, you're not just learning a language, you're engaging with your passion in a whole new way.
And that's where the magic happens, right?
Exactly.
Because you're not just passively absorbing information.
Right.
You're actively making connections, drawing on your prior knowledge,
Yes.
and even picking up on those subtle nuances of language that only true fans would understand.
Exactly. It taps into this fascinating area of cognitive psychology. We learn and remember best when the information is relevant to us, when it has an emotional hook.
Wow.
So whether your passion is cooking, coding, or collecting stamps, finding ways to connect it to your English learning can be a game changer.
It's like when you finally learn the English names of all the herbs and spices you love to use in your cooking.
Okay, yeah.
Suddenly, those words have meaning and context.
Context. Yeah.
And they stick with you.
They do.
Speaking of sticking with you, let's talk about accents for a second.
Accents, okay.
I know this is something a lot of language learners,
Yeah.
myself included, can get hung up on.
It's completely natural. We often strive for this idealized native accent.
Oh, yeah.
But the truth is, there are countless variations of English spoken around the world,
That's true.
each with its own unique melody and rhythm.
Right.
What matters most is clear, confident communication.
So it's less about sounding like a BBC news reader and more about being understood.
Precisely.
Okay.
And here's a fascinating point the article raises. They suggest focusing on the accent of the places where you're most likely to use English.
Oh, that's smart.
Planning a trip to Australia.
Oh.
Maybe it's time to brush up on your Aussie slang. Presenting at an international conference in London. Focusing on clear, concise pronunciation will be key.
Right.
It's about tailoring your approach to your specific goals and context.
That's brilliant. And it makes so much sense.
It does.
Instead of chasing this elusive ideal, you're focusing on the practicalities of communication being understood in the real world.
And that brings us to another important point, real-world practice.
Okay.
Because, let's be honest, you can spend hours memorizing verb tenses and vocabulary lists.
I've been there.
But nothing beats the experience of actually using the language in a real-life situation.
They actually recommend things like ordering food in English, asking for directions.
Oh, yeah.
Even using live chat support as opportunities to practice.
I like it.
It's about stepping outside of your comfort zone and embracing those little moments of linguistic adventure.
And those adventures don't have to be limited to face-to-face interactions either.
Oh, true.
The article highlights the incredible resources available online language exchange platforms where you can connect with native speakers.
Right.
Online forums and communities dedicated to your interests.
Yeah.
Even just watching movies and TV shows in English.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's about creating an immersive environment, even if you're not physically in an English-speaking country.
That's so key. It's like surrounding yourself with the language,
Yes.
letting it seep into your daily life, even in small ways.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of small steps, the article emphasizes the importance of setting realistic goals and celebrating those small victories along the way.
They highlight that learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint.
So true.
It's easy to get caught up in the I need to be fluent now mindset.
All right.
But that can lead to burnout and frustration.
It does, yeah.
Instead, they suggest breaking down your larger language goals into smaller, more manageable milestones.
So instead of saying, I want to be fluent in English,
Right.
you might say, this week I'm going to focus on mastering the present perfect tense.
Okay.
Or this month I'm going to have a 15-minute conversation with a language exchange partner.
Exactly. Each small victory, no matter how seemingly insignificant, builds momentum and keeps you motivated to keep going. And those mini goals kind of work on a deeper level too, you know?
Oh, how so?
It's like you're rewiring your brain, right?
Okay.
Proving to yourself that you can make progress.
Right.
Which then fuels even more progress.
I like it.
It's a positive feedback loop.
It's like that feeling when you finally nail a difficult yoga pose after weeks of practice.
Yes.
You suddenly feel more capable, more confident.
Right.
And more motivated to keep pushing yourself further.
What a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And speaking of pushing yourself further, the article encourages learners to actively seek out those aha moments.
Oh,
You know, those moments where something just clicks.
I like it.
They suggest things like experimenting with different learning methods.
Okay.
Stepping outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And even embracing those moments where you make mistakes.
Because let's face it, mistakes are inevitable, right?
Totally.
I mean, I still mix up my there, and there. Sometimes, yeah.
And I've been speaking English my whole life.
Absolutely. And the article actually challenges us to reframe our perception of mistakes.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of seeing them as failures,
Right.
they encourage us to view them as valuable learning opportunities,
Okay.
as stepping stones on the path to fluency.
So it's about shifting that internal dialogue from I messed up to interesting, what can I learn from this?
Exactly. And they offer a few practical tips for turning those mistakes into learning moments.
Okay, like what?
Like, instead of just glossing over a grammar mistake,
Right.
take the time to really understand why it's incorrect
Mm-hmm.
and how to use the rule correctly next time.
Okay.
Or, if you stumble over a particular word in conversation,
Yeah.
jot it down afterwards and practice saying it out loud until it rolls off your tongue naturally.
Those are good tips. Now, another point the article touched on that I found really interesting was the idea of immersing yourself in the language,
Yes.
even if you don't live in an English-speaking country. They suggest some really clever strategies for creating an immersive environment right at home.
Oh, like what?
Like changing the language settings on your phone and computer to English.
Oh, that's a good one.
It might feel strange at first,
Right.
but you'd be surprised how quickly you start picking up those everyday tech terms.
And think about how much time we spend on our phones and computers these days.
Right.
It's like constant low-level exposure to the language.
Exactly. And they don't stop there.
What else?
They encourage us to think about all the other ways we can incorporate English into our daily routines.
Yeah. Okay.
Like listening to English language podcasts while we commute.
Yeah.
Watching movies and TV shows with subtitles.
Right.
Even following English-speaking social media accounts.
It's about transforming those everyday activities into opportunities for language learning.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment either.
No?
Even just dedicating 15, 20 minutes each day to reading an English news article or listening to a short podcast can make a big difference over time.
Consistency is key.
Right.
They emphasize that even small, consistent efforts can lead to significant progress over time.
It's like that saying,
What's that?
the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
Right.
The second best time is today.
I love it.
It's never too late to start.
It's not.
And even small steps can make a difference.
They do.
And it's about making it enjoyable, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Finding those little ways to weave English into your life in a way that feels fun and engaging rather than like a chore.
Absolutely. They highlight that the more you enjoy the process,
Yeah.
the more likely you are to stick with it.
That's so true.
And that brings us to another crucial point, finding your own rhythm and learning style.
Because, let's face it, what works for one person might not work for another.
Of course not.
Some people thrive in structured classroom settings,
Right.
while others prefer the flexibility of language learning apps.
Mm-hmm.
Some are visual learners, while others learn best through listening and speaking.
Right.
The key is to experiment and find what works best for you.
And to not be afraid to mix things up.
Right.
The article encourages us to be flexible in our approach.
Okay.
Some days you might feel like diving into a grammar textbook,
Yeah.
while other days you might prefer to relax and watch a movie in English.
Right.
It's about listening to your own needs and preferences.
It's about making language learning a personalized journey, not a one-size-fits-all approach.
And remember, it's a journey with ups and downs, twists and turns.
For sure.
There will be moments of frustration,
Mm-hmm.
plateaus,
Mm-hmm.
where you feel like you're not making progress,
Oh, yeah.
and even times when you just want to give up.
Those moments are totally normal. I think we've all been there at some point in our language learning journeys.
The article emphasizes that it's during these challenging moments that it's especially important to remember your why.
It's easy to forget, though.
It is.
When you're in it.
It is, yeah. Why did you start learning English in the first place?
Yeah.
What are you hoping to achieve?
It's about tapping back into that initial spark, that motivation that got you started in the first place.
Exactly. And they offer some practical tips for staying motivated when the going gets tough.
Oh, like what?
Like surrounding yourself with a supportive community of fellow language learners.
Because let's face it, learning a language can be isolating, especially if you're doing it on your own.
It can.
Having a group of people who understand the challenges and can offer encouragement can make all the difference.
It's like having a cheering section, right?
Exactly.
To keep your spirits up when you're feeling discouraged.
And they remind us that even those who seem fluent have been exactly where you are now.
We've all been there.
Grappling with grammar rules, stumbling over pronunciations.
Oh, yeah.
And having those, wait, how do I say this again? Moments.
All the time.
We've all been there. It's easy to look at someone who speaks another language effortlessly and think, oh, they're just naturally gifted.
Right, like it was just handed to them.
But the truth is, fluency is the result of dedication.
It is.
Perseverance. And yes, even a few awkward moments along the way.
And those awkward moments often lead to the most memorable learning experiences.
That's right.
They build character, resilience, and a sense of humor about the whole language learning process.
It's like that saying, you never forget the things you learn the hard way.
Right.
And speaking of learning, the article leaves us with a really powerful message.
Okay.
It's not about reaching some arbitrary finish line.
Interesting.
But about embracing the journey of lifelong learning.
They remind us that language is constantly evolving, with new words, expressions.
Oh, for sure.
And even grammatical structures emerging all the time.
That's true.
So even when you reach a level of fluency you're comfortable with,
the
learning doesn't stop there.
It's about staying curious. Continuing to explore the nuances of the language.
It is.
And finding joy in the process of discovery.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll find yourself inspiring others to embark on their own language learning adventures.
Wouldn't that be something?
It would.
To think that your journey could spark that same passion and curiosity in others.
I love that.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this Udemy article, let's bring it back to you.
Yes.
What resonated most with you today?
What's one small step you can take to move forward on your own language learning journey?
Remember, every journey begins with a single step.
That's right.
So whether it's picking up a language learning app, seeking out a language exchange partner, or even just changing the language settings on your phone.
It's a good one.
Take that step today and see where it leads you.
Because the world opens up when you speak another language.
It does.
You connect with people on a deeper level, experience new cultures in a more meaningful way, and unlock possibilities you may never have imagined.
So keep exploring, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep that love of language alive.
Yep.